Hi everyone, it's Ashley and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today is a super fun video because I'm part of the 25 Days of Christmas Tags Hop. To get more information about this hop, check down in the video description below. But basically this hop is a showcase of a whole bunch of different amazing stamping companies, and you can see loads of different design and inspiration of Christmas tags being made with all of these different products. So for more information, like I said, go check out that description box below. Today I'm participating as part of Penguin Palace Stamps, which is super fun, and I'm going to be using Penguin Palace products to make a bunch of Christmas tags. As you can see, I'm using their new Stencils 360 product, and I've used this a whole bunch both on my channel as well as over on the Penguin Palace Stamps YouTube channel, so head over there to see more videos that I've made using these products. Essentially, what this product is a way to stencil and get beautiful stenciling results without having to mask. So you can use different colors and get lots of different multicolored patterns, and it makes it super easy. So I'll walk you through the steps of how that's done. And you can see my cat just walked across the screen there. So, hello Luna. But okay, so Stencils 360 starts with having the Stencils 360 base, which is just that big piece of square plastic that was the first thing on the work surface. Into that base, you can place a paper positioner, which is clear, and that will tell you exactly where you need to put your paper. And there's lots of different sizes of these depending on what size of paper you're using. For me, I decided to use a 6" by 6" piece of paper, and I placed it into that guide. Then you can take the paper guide away and instead put in the stencil guide. And again, there's a bunch of different sizes of this depending on what size of stencil you're using. For me, I'm using a 6" stencil, so I'm using the 6" stencil guide. Once that's taped in, you are ready to stencil. So you can put your stencil right into that opening. You can see that this stencil just fits perfectly into that circular opening of that 6" stencil guide ring, and then you can just start inking away. So for this card, I'm using the Sense of Fall stencil, which I guess sounds a little bit weird because I'm making Christmas tags out of it, but I also thought that this stencil could work really well for Christmas, depending on which colors you used. So I chose some Distress Oxide colors that are Christmas themed, so a bright green, a gold, a bright yellow, a bright red, and a deep red. And I just thought that this combination of colors would work really well for Christmas, and I thought that this stencil would be perfect for that. So as you can see, what you would do is you choose different parts of the image that you want to be different colors. So I chose for those acorns to be gold, and then a few of the foliage pieces to be green, some of the leaves to be yellow, some to be red, and things like that. So once you've done that, you just ink up those elements that you want to be those colors, and then all you do is you rotate the stencil to the designated markings, and it generally tells you right on the stencil how you should rotate it, and it all depends on sort of the shape of a little opening at the top of that stencil. So for this one, the shape of the opening was a double circle, which indicates that you should rotate it every other circle on that guide ring above. So you can see on the Stencils 360 base, there are all those little shapes with lines guiding them. So if it's a double circle, it means that you should rotate it to every other circle on that base for every rotation. And if you do that, then you'll kind of get the ideal pattern that is sort of meant or that they had in mind when they made the stencil. And of course, you could definitely try out different rotations and get different looks, but this is sort of just the basic guide for how to go about it and get sort of the typical pattern that should be expected. So the cool thing is that at every rotation you just ink with the same colors. So I'm just using the same green, gold, orange, and red, or yellow and red, and this is what you end up getting. You end up getting this beautiful multicolored look. So I'm going to showcase this exact same technique using a different stencil. I've got the same exact setup here. So I have a piece of 6" by 6" paper. I have a 6" stencil, so I'm using that 6" guide ring, and just starting at the top here using green. This is the Magical Fireworks stencil, which actually comes with two stencils in a set. So this is the first one, and it's these beautiful kind of thick lines. And what I'm doing is I'm alternating between green and red. Now, the shape on this one that tells you how you should rotate it is actually in the shape of a star, which means that you can choose any rotation you want and it's going to have an amazing effect. There's really no sort of instructed way. So I was kind of just playing around and deciding how I wanted it to be rotated and how much I wanted these lines to be overlapping, and I ended up deciding on this, and you can kind of just stick with it. So I decided, I think, on the heart level of rotation, which I think is 22.5 degrees, don't quote me on that. but something like that. And then you can just choose to go around, and then you go around to all the hearts and you know that you're getting the same rotation at every turn. So like I said, I'm alternating between green and red here and kind of just removing the stencil and wiping it off in between rotations. But then I do get smart and I end up just rotating it in an alternating way. So I rotate it every other heart so I can stick with green, and then I come back and I rotate it every other heart again so I can stick with red. So whichever color I'm using, I do the same thing. I just take my ink blending tool to the stencil and just blend it right on. It's actually very quick to kind of get that ink through the stencil down onto the pattern. There's not very much open space on these patterns, so it goes on super quickly, and then you can kind of just rotate it and do it again, and it's super fast. So here I am doing the red sort of over and over and again, sort of alternating the rotation positions because I know I'm going to have to come back in with that green and fill it in a moment. But this sort of just makes it go a little bit faster. You can do the red all at once and not have to sort of wipe it in between. So that is the red done, and I'm going to come back in and go back to the green now and finish that off as well. So I'm just sort of picking out where it should be in that rotation, that heart that it should be on, and filling it in with the green. And then once I'm done that, again, I'm just sort of blending it on with my blending tool. I'll rotate it and go to the next heart and then blend it again. And after that, that should fill in the pattern. Once I get that green ink onto here, that should be the last rotation for this. Now the Magical Fireworks stencil set, like I said, it comes with 2 stencils, so I am going to come back in with the second stencil as part of this set and blend on with alternating gold and yellow just to add a pop of bright colors. So again, this one is marked with a star, which means that you can rotate it at any rotation you want and it will look beautiful, which I can attest to. I've tried a few different rotations. However you want it to be overlapping is totally fine. This one works so nice. And I'm starting with gold. And I just have a little finger blender for my gold ink pad here, and I'm just blending it right on. Now this part of the stencil set has these openings that kind of look like little squares in a line, and they layer over the lines from that other stencil so nicely, and they really do end up looking like fireworks when they're combined. Now again, I got smart on this one, and I am going around in an alternating way, so alternating rotations and just continuing with the gold until the entire sort of circle of rotation is complete. And I'm just speeding up the video here so you can see the ink blending come together a little bit faster. Once the gold rotations are done, I'm coming back in with a yellow color, that same bold yellow I used on the other tag, and again, just sort of alternating here and going through and blending that yellow color on in an alternating fashion with the gold. So it will go gold, yellow, and alternate around the circle. So that is the 2 patterns done, and they are both stunning and bright and came together so easily. Now I'm using a couple hexagon dies, and I'm just showing where I had placed them onto those patterns, and I just used 1 big and 1 small hexagon die and cut out sort of a big and a small hexagon from each of those patterns that I made. And I sort of played around with where I wanted them to cut and where I wanted the pattern to lie on them, but those will make the base for my tags. Those hexagon dies are also a product by Penguin Palace Stamps. If you're interested, the name of that die set will be down in the video description below. To finish off the tags, I'm just adding some sentiments. I didn't want to take away too much from those bold and beautiful backgrounds, so I just wanted to keep the rest of the tags quite simple with the sentiments. For the sentiments, I'm using a couple different Penguin Palace Stamps stamp sets. One is called Warmest Wishes, which is part of their latest release, and that is those 2 circle sentiments. One says Merry Xmas or Merry Christmas, and one says Happy Holidays. For the other little sentiment, I'm using Enjoy Your Holidays, and that is from the older Penguin Palace stamp set, Love Train. For all of these sentiments, I am just embossing them in gold. I really wanted a bright gold metallic, so for that I'm just using some gold embossing powder, and I had stamped them out using Versamark ink. And then I can come in with my heat tool and melt that embossing powder so you get that beautiful, shiny, metallic gold look. And you can see how it melts, sort of how it becomes shiny, which is always the best part of embossing, just watching it get shiny and bright and beautiful. So, like I said, both of these sentiment stamps are from Penguin Palace Stamps. Off camera, I'm also going to go ahead and emboss a couple more sentiments onto some vellum. Actually, it's pearlescent vellum. which I'm not showing on camera, but it was the same technique of embossing. So I've sort of laid out what I want to use in terms of sentiments for each of the tags, and now I can just sort of start assembling them. So for the small tags, all I did was add a little bit of double-sided tape to either end of those sentiment strips, and these are the vellum ones that I mentioned. And then I can sort of just fold the ends around and tape them onto the back of the tag. So here I am just folding one side, and then I can kind of line up that sentiment banner, make sure it's exactly how I want it, and then take that release paper off the tape, fold it over, and stick it down. I should mention that off camera, I also went ahead and cut out those little holes at the top of each tag using a tiny little circle die, but you could really use any way that you have on hand to cut these little circles. Just a regular old hole punch will do as well. So I did the same thing for both of these small hexagons, where I just added a little bit of double-sided tape to the back of each end of those sentiment banners and just folded them over and stuck them down to the back of the tag. If you wanted to cover this up, you could always just cut another hexagon and tape it onto the back to cover up those tape ends, but it didn't bother me, so I just left it. For the big hexagon tags, this is where I'm using those circle sentiments that come from that Warmest Wishes die set. So for these, I'm just adding a few foam squares to the back of the circles. I'm just cutting them apart to sort of make sure they fit on nicely. And once I'm done adding the foam, I can pull off that release paper and just stick them right down to the front of the tag. For this tag, I decided to just put that circle right in the middle, kind of towards the bottom, and have that be the only element on this tag because I just thought that background was too pretty to cover up anymore. So that is that whole tag done. For the second large tag, the way I had cut it out had the pattern a little bit offset, so I ended up deciding to have that circle sentiment also a little bit offset. I'm adhering it the same way, where I'm taking that foam, a few foam squares, and sticking them down and then pulling off that release paper. Since this one will be a little bit overhanging, I only stuck the foam squares onto one side, and then I can just stick that down to the tag. I found I didn't put quite enough foam on and it was coming up a little bit at the side, so all I did was take one more little foam square and add it in afterwards to really stick that down to the edge. For this one, I did want to add one little sentiment banner underneath. This is one of those Enjoy Your Holidays that I had embossed and cut out into a little strip, and I'm just sticking that down with some liquid glue right beneath that Merry Xmas sentiment. So I'm just using my craft tweezers to line that up, making sure it's nice and horizontal, and sticking it down again with some liquid glue, and then that's all good to go. So that is the 4 tags. Before I finish up this video, I'm going to show you how I added some ribbon. For the 2 big ones, I added some red ribbon. So I just cut out little strips, and then all I did was fold them over itself and stick that folded half into the hole of the tag. And then once that folded half is through, you get that little loop, and then you can take your 2 other edges and stick them through the loop and pull them through. And that's it. That's all you need to do. It's the easiest way to add a ribbon to a tag. No tying needed. It's super, super simple, and it creates that nice little sort of fold over at the edge too. So then you can just take that and tie it right onto your gift. For the 2 small tags, I used the same technique, but for these I used a little bit of thinner gold ribbon. So I liked kind of having the ribbon match up with the theme of the cards, which is that red and that gold. So I did the same thing for both of those, and then that's all done. So those are the tags complete. These are the 2 small ones, and as you can see, those backgrounds are just so bright and beautiful, and I love how they turned out and how easy they were to make. And those are the 2 big ones with similar backgrounds, but just a little bit bigger. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you learned a little something about the Stencils 360 system, which you can hopefully use at home. I had so much fun joining in on this 25 days of Christmas tags, and I hope you had fun as well. If you're interested in seeing more of my cards, definitely make sure to subscribe to my channel so you'll see whenever I release a new video, as well as heading over to my Instagram account where I post a lot more cards. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!